HE Peoples OFTE Balkans ARE Waging. AN Heroic War. November 1941. After the founding of the Communist Party of Albania on November 8, 1941, the Central Committee addressed its first appeal to the Albanian people. An appeal written by Comrade Enver Hoxha, in which he speaks about the heroic war of the peoples of the Balkans. ALL, the enslaved peoples of Europe, including the peoples of the Balkans, are waging an heroic war for their liberation. The Montenegrins, Serbs, Croats, Macedonians, and Greeks, whose countries are enslaved by German and Italian fascism, are waging a large-scale war for 9. Their national liberation. 1. Through the ceaseless fight of the partisan ITA and acts of sabotage, they are not leaving fascism in peace to milk it and de-oppress them, but are destroying its vital centers. Are not allowing it to take grain, weapons, munitions, and men to use in the war against other peoples. 1. The resolution of the founding meeting of the party also points out, we must develop love and fighting cooperation with all the peoples of the Balkans who are fighting heroically for their national liberation. 10. In Greek, ETHE, fascist occupiers. ARE being Sheikh N, November 1942. In his articles published in the newspaper Zuria Populit, besides writing about the national liberation war of the Albanian people, Comrade Enver Hoxha also wrote about the anti-fascist war of the Greek people and other peoples of the Balkans. The fascist occupiers have realized like 2 and 2 makes 4 that they are in open war with the Albanian people, that their position here is becoming critical, that their munitions dumps are not secure, that their army is in danger, that the IR position in Greece is being shaken, that the aid YSH they send the fascist soldiers in Yugoslavia is becoming worthless. In 11. Short, all the peoples of the Balkans oppressed by fascism are becoming a terrible danger for the occupiers. The fascist generals have admitted openly that fascism has to fight on the Balkan front too. 12. THE People OF Dropol 1. Havi Fafti Loyal Y. September 6, 1943. At the Second National Liberation Conference, which was held in Labano of Elbasan on September 4 to 9, 1943, Comrade Enver Hoxha delivered the report on the stand towards various currents outside the national liberation movement, in which amongst other things he pointed out, we shall try to include other currents too in the national liberation movement. This is how we have acted with the Greek minority, for example. Today they are suffering occupy. One zone in southern Albania inhabited by the Greek minority. 13. Shown by the same enemy. They have had to fight alongside us. Our war is their war. We are fight ing the same enemy. The people of Dropol L are well aware of this. The people of the Greek minority have proved themselves up to the mark, have fought loyally, and have defended the interests of Albania against the Greek reactionary circles. 14. THE Albanian people sabotage DTHE Italian fascist aggression against Greek E Mark H 20 1944. In the theoretical course with main cadres, which was organized in the time of the National Liberation War at Panarit of Kora, Comrade Enver Hoxha delivered the report on the theme, the National Liberation War, its prospects and our tasks. In his analysis of the international situation, he spoke about the aggression by fascist Italy against Greece and the National Liberation War in this country. At that time, fascist Italy was preparing its aggression against Greece. It tried to embroil our people in war over the old chauvinist anta. 1 October 1940, 15. Gonisms and to recruit men into the ranks of the militia. However, our people were not deceived by this demagogy and began to sabotage this WAR war. 2. TE Greek National Liberation War 2 is making great progress. There they have the EAM-3 and an organized army ELIS. 4. TS Front, like those everywhere, is battling enemies SB. 2. Speaking about the Albanian people's sabotage of the fascist Zervas has sabotaged the EAM movement. No W. Sally the supporters of Kinji George and Zervas. 5. Zervas has sabotaged the EAM movement. No WEAM has stopped the war against Zervas and reached an agreement with him to fight the occupier jointly or separately. To stop the war against each other and to exchange prisoners. We are unable to express opinions about the war which is being waged in Greece, but only know that we are on the right line. 6. Despite this agreement, the war in Greece is assuming greater proportions and resisting German reaction well. 5. A rabid chauvinist, one of the main heads of Greek reaction during the Second World War and a tool of the British imperialists. 6. CP. This was a time when fascist Italy, continuing its annexationist policy, launched the aggression against the fraternal Greek people. We immediately condemned this new aggression, wrote and distributed in Tirana, Kora, and elsewhere a series of leaflets in which, besides exposing the fascist policy, we called on our people to sabotage this war in every way possible, and especially to sabotage the fascists' efforts to send Albanian soldiers to the front as cannon fodder. And what was bound to occur took place. Not only did the Albanian people react to this new fascist aggression against the Greek people with boundless indignation and anger, but even those few Albanian soldiers who were forced to the front at bayonet point did not fire a single shot against the Greek brothers, but on the contrary, either turned their rifles against the fascist aggressors or deserted en masse. When the party was born, Memoirs, 8 Nantori Publishing House, Toronto 198.3, P97, 3rd Alb, ed. 3 The National Liberation Front. For THE Mobilization, OFTE, Greek A Minority, and THE National Liberation, WARAND, 4 TE, Fraternization, OFTE, Greek A, AND, Albanian Peoples. Letter to the Communist Party of Greece, April 2, 1944. THE Central Committee, EOFTE, Communist Tea Part Y, OF Albania, OTT Buria, UOFTE Central Committee, EOFTE, Communist Tea Part Y, OF Greek E. Dear comrades, we received your letter of March 12, 1944. In regard to your proposal for an eventual meeting between 2 delegates of our 2 parties, we consider this necessary and urgent in order. 18. To discuss various problems which affect us and especially the problem of minorities. As for the delicate question of minorities, we ask the Bureau of the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Greece to send comrades who are well acquainted with the question of nationalities to work with us, since it is easy to make mistakes and unwittingly damage the WAR which is being waged against the Germans and their lackeys. To this end, we desire that you explain thoroughly to the Greek comrades who will come to our country that they must work zealously and familiarize themselves with the directives of our party, as well as with those of the Albanian National Liberation Front. For our part, we will do everything possible to make the Greek comrades familiar with our directives. Misunderstanding of our directives by EAM would cause unacceptable confusion and mistakes which would be harmful to the war we are wagging and to the fraternization of our 2 peoples. As you rightly stress in your letter, the Greek comrades who are to come to our country must place themselves at the disposal of our party, mobilize the masses to join our ranks and work for the fraternization of our 2 peoples. We point these things out because mistakes have been made by our comrades and the Greek comrades who are working together with the Greek minority in Albania. It is essential that you inform us of the outcome of the talks which you have had with 19. EDS what points have been agreed on in these talks and to what extent they are being respected by Zervas. In any case, irrespective of what has been achieved between you and EDS, we'll not permit the Zervas elements to enter our country. We shall fight the slightest attempt YCH those elements might make from this side of our borders under the pretext of the agreement with EAM. The Zervas elements in Albania are directly linked with the Germans in Albanian reaction and in open struggle against us. The Greek comrades who will come to work with us must pursue this line of work. Please inform us through the bearer of this letter whether you have contacts with the Supreme Staff of the Yugoslav Forces, comradely greetings, F, or the Central Committee of the Communist Party of Albania 1, the Greek National Democratic Organization of Traitors led by Zervas. Union, Reactionary. 20. We have EFOFT and D together with THE Greek A people, November 28, 1944. On the day the Democratic Government of Albania entered Tirana, a big rally was organized in the capital, in which Comrade Enver Hoxha delivered a programmatic speech. Among other things, he spoke about the friendship between the Albanian people and the Greek people. We have fought and bled together with the neighboring Greek people. We have bandaged each other's wounds in this common anti-fascist war, and it is our desire to be always on. 1 at that time head of the Democratic Government of Albania and Commander-in-Chief of the National Liberation Army of Albania. 21. Good terms with this generous people. With regret we observe that the chauvinist and reactionary bands of Zervas are martyring the AMRA population, robbing them of their possessions and hounding them out of their territory. Zervas elements are crossing the border on the sly to kill or wound our partisans. We will never tolerate such acts in our country. Reactionary Greek circles have presented claims to annex our regions of Girokastra and Kora, or as they like to call them Vorio Epiris. Such claims, naturally, do not make for good relations with our southern neighbors. Our borders are indisputable, because within them there is nothing but our land, the land bequeathed to us by our forefathers, land on which our blood has been shed. No one will dare to touch them. We shall know WHOW to defend them if they do. Our national liberation movement has given the Greek minority in Albania equal rights with the Albanian people. The Democratic Government of Albania will guarantee the Greek minority in our country the freedom and the democratic national rights for which their sons fought heroically in the National Liberation Brigades. THE Heroic Greek people ARE Friends OFTHE Albanian people April 16, 1945. At the Second Congress of the Anti-Fascist Youth of Albania, which held its proceedings in Tirana, Comrade Enver Hoxha greeted the Congress and all the anti-fascist youth of our country. In his speech, among other things, he also spoke about the claims of Greek reaction on Albania. Here amongst you are representatives of EPON, the representatives of the heroic anti-fascist youth of the valiant Hellenic people from whom the chauvinists of Athens want to divide us. THE reactionary fascist gentlemen of Athens are one the All Greece Youth Union organization. 23. Dreaming of gobbling up our territories. But they cannot gobble up our regions of Korea and Girokastra because there is someone who defends them. Those who are capable of liberating Albania from the Germans are also more than capable of defending the territorial integrity of their country from the whelps of fascism who are vegetating in Athens. The fascists of the Megali Idea are still living in the world of Hitler and with the crazy dreams of Hitler. But there are the wise to put a stop to the madmen. 1,001 provocations are being committed beyond our southern border in order to disturb the waters. The Greek chauvinists, like dogs barking at the moon, are howling about the tortures which we are allegedly inflicting on the Greek minority in Albania. We are not beasts like them, but are human. We do not kill, massacre, or plunder. We do not behave with the minority as the gangs of Zervas and Plastiras do with the population of Amria, who they have savagely massacred and murdered. On the contrary, our stand towards the minority is the stand of one of the most advanced peoples of the world, of a people with humane feelings and exemplary justice. The Greek minority in democratic Albania enjoys all rights. It has its OUN schools, its OUN teachers, its OUN press, its OUN men in the government and in the army. The great idea, ideological platform of the Greek chauvinist bourgeoisie which aimed to create a great Greek state with the borders of the former Byzantine Empire. 24. Greek minority has won these undeniable rights at the cost of bloodshed, fighting shoulder to shoulder with its Albanian brothers against the common enemy, fascism and its lackeys. The old woman of the minority people and mother of the martyr Thanasiko expressed the indivisible fraternity and love of the Greek minority for the noble-hearted people of Albania at the meeting of Berat when she said, I came to rejoice with you over these happy days which we have achieved. I came to see the comrades of my son who died for democratic Albania. The gentlemen of Athens want to darken these happy days about which the old woman from the minority spoke. They want to cover up their crimes by slandering us. But their slanders will rebound in their OUN faces because small but heroic Albania has strong friends. Besides the whole progressive world and the peoples of the Soviet Union, it has all the progress-loving peoples of the Balkans. Small Albania has a real friend in the heroic Greek people. That people WHO never lowered the flag of resistance against Germany and its internal agents. That Greek people together with whom we have shed blood for freedom and democracy. That people who have nothing at all to do with the chauvinists of Athens. We are a people who want to live in peace. 3 revolutionary patriot from the minority who worked and fought for the overthrow of Zog's feudal bourgeois regime. He died in exile in Belgrade in February 1941, 25. With everybody, but when it comes to defending our rights, when it comes to defending the integrity of our homeland and the independence of Albania, we are not afraid to measure our strength with anyone, and no one frightens us. LET, the monarcho-fascist gentlemen of Athens, take note of this. 26. THE Albanian people did not declare war. ON, Greek E, Mark H. 10, 1946. The question of the admission of Albania as a member of the United Nations was raised in the Security Council of that organization on February 12, 1946. On this occasion, the head of the Greek delegation to UNO, Mr. Rendis, in a letter to the Security Council, in which Albania is considered as a country which had been on the side of the Axis, sought postponement of the discussion of its admission until the next session of the Assembly. In connection with this question, Comrade Enver Hoxha, in his reply to a question asked him by the newspaper Bashkimi amongst other things said, the argument of Mr. Rendis presented to UNO to oppose the admission of Albania to this. 27. Organization and argument supporting their imperialist pretensions is as ludicrous as the pretext of fascist Italy when it declared war on Greece, a pretext which was based on the killing of a certain Hoxha. Mr. Rendis, his government, and all the Greek fascists ought to realize one thing, that what Greece suffered from Italy in 1940, our country suffered on April 7, 1939. And when the Albanian people were fighting on April 7 at the beginning of the occupation, the friends of Mr. Rendis, Metaxas, and company, not only did not raise their voice against this catastrophe which was occurring to the small neighbor of Greece, but did not even consider this aggression as an imminent danger which threatened Greece and the whole of the Balkans. It was not the Albanian people who declared war on Greece, but fascist Italy and the Quisling Shevket Vras I and his associates. In regard to the declaration and waging of the war, the Albanian people are in no way responsible for this. On the contrary, our people were opposed to the Italo-Greek war, were the heroic Greek people who were being killed and enslaved as they were themselves from April 7, 1939. Our people displayed these feelings which they nurtured for the neighboring people by fighting against the Italian occupiers. Mr. Rendis must know that when fascist Italy declared war on Greece, the prisons in Albania were filled with Albanian patriots for holding demonstrations. 28. AND fighting the Italian carabiniers in the city streets, thousands of Albanian patriots filled the concentration camps in Italy. The Italian viceroy tried to clear the field by sending the Albanian youth to concentration camps because the resistance of our people was building up rapidly. Mr. Rendis must know that the walls of Tirana were covered with slogans against the Italo-Greek war, that the resistance groups, through leaflets and propaganda, caused all the Albanian soldiers to desert from the ranks of the Quisling army and they were interned in the fascist concentration camps. Mr. Rendis must know that the armed units of the National Liberation Movement in Central Albania attacked the Italians transporting their supplies for the Greek front, and that the desire expressed by our people to fight shoulder to shoulder with the Greek army against the Italians was refused categorically by the Greek command. Moreover, when the Greek army entered the zones of southern Albania, it disarmed the population of those zones. The Albanian people continued their sympathy for the Greek people and the solidarity in the WAR for the common cause under the German occupation too. TE battalions of our brigades in fraternity with ELAS and the whole Greek people crossed the border and attacked the German common occupier on Greek soil. The honest Greek people know these things, and the bandit Zervas and his associates know them too. 29. THE Albanian people have always lived as good neighbors with. THE Greek people, August 21, 1946. At this time, the peace conference was being held in Paris. At the plenary session of this conference, Comrade Enver Hoxha, who headed the delegation of the democratic government of Albania, spoke about the national liberation war of the Albanian people and about the sacrifices and the contribution they made to the achievement of the victory over fascism. He also presented the views and stands of Albania about the problems which were being discussed and refuted the false accusations of Saldaris. When the Italians attacked Greece, the Darng and powerful armed actions of the AL-30, Albanian people were a great assistance to the Greek people who were suffering the same fate as ours. We were bound to each other by the same misfortune caused by our common enemy. Along the roads of Durs, Tirana, and Girokastra, the Albanian partisans attacked Italian military convoys heading for the Greek front. Clearly seeing the danger threatening them, the Italians and the Albanian Quislings, their tools, redoubled their efforts and stepped up their terror. The mountains were full of party sands, organized in regular formations, who made incessant attacks on the enemy. In reprisal, hundreds of villages were burned down, but we defended the liberated territory inch by inch. THE Italians were obliged to take refuge in the towns because the mountains were not so good for their health. The Quisling governments under Italian domination fell and were replaced every 10 months. The Albanian people made life impossible both for them and for their bosses. This showed the great gulf which separated the Quislings from the heroic Albanian people. Following the capitulation of Italy and the occupation of our country by German troops who came from Greece, the Albanian people closed their ranks still tighter because they needed to deal with another ferocious, bloodthirsty enemy. THE Albanian people come proudly to this peace conference convinced that they have completely fulfilled their duty as allies. Albania AP 31 pairs here to claim its right to reparations and to demand justice from Italy which set it ablaze and drowned it in blood, and to dictate its as a victor, so that Italy may no longer represent a threat to peace in the world or to the independence and sovereignty of my country. However, before stating the viewpoint of my country on this question, I feel it my duty to answer the false accusations of Mr. Saldaris, the head of the Greek delegation. Accusations and claims that he has formulated against Albania at various earlier sessions of this conference. Mr. Saldaris tries to prove that Albania is not an allied country, that Albania attacked Greece and consequently is in a state of war with Greece. On the other hand, Mr. Saldaris lays claim to southern Albania, pretending that it is Greek territory and belongs by right to Greece. On the question of whether Albania is an allied country and whether it has fully deserved this title, Mr. Saldaris has our reply in the words I have just spoken. The Albanian people contemptuously reject the vile accusation of the Greek delegate who labels my country an aggressor. The Albanian people have never attacked the honest Greek people and have never declared war on them. On the contrary, they sympathize with their cause, which was also the cause of the Albanian people, since both nations had suffered the same fate and had to deal with the same enemy. 32. The Albanian people demonstrated, not only during the anti-fascist war but also during the First World War, their determination to fight Italian imperialism. YCH had its eye on our land and resources. Between the Albanian people and the Italian fascists, a terrible and merciless war was waged. That ISW is why Mr. Saldaris will not succeed in convincing anybody, even the stupid. With his famous arguments, Mr. Saldaris should demand a settlement of accounts from fascist Italy for its disgraceful attack against his country, and not from us. He should call to account the war criminal Victor Emmanuel, not the Albanian people, who were invaded by the same enemy as Greece and who, like the Greek people, fought furiously for their independence and sovereignty. It would be ridiculous to think that, by a paltry decree, Victor Emmanuel, King of Italy, could lay the blame on the Albanian people who waged a merciless war against Italy right from the first days of the occupation, and who even made an attempt on the king's life during his only visit to Albania in Maui 1941. Mr. Saldaris uses the declaration of war on the party of the Albanian Quisling VR Lassi as an argument to defend his thesis. The Albanian people lumped the occupiers and Quislings together and made no distinction between them. The Albanian Quislings, like all the other Quislings of Europe, had nothing in common with HR people. They were the filthiest enemies of their people and, as such, 33 have been fought consistently. The Albanian Quislings were not able to muster more than AFEW weak battalions against the Liberation Army A and D, the Allies, whereas the Albanian people rose as one man against the oppressor in the Tri-Tours. That is the difference between our people A and D. The Quislings would Mr. Saldaris like to know W. In addition, what the Albanian people did with those Quislings. Just this, they wiped them out, all of them, and thus they paid with their lives for the crimes they committed. And D, if he wants to know W more about the fate of their associates in the war who fled with H the German troops, he should know W that these criminals may be found in the best hotels in Rome, the city from which the planes which so cravenly bombed Albanian and Greek women and children took off. I would like to ask Mr. Saldaris, why does he not mention the Quislings of other European countries who so gravely damaged the Allied cause, and in particular, those Quislings who, after having committed horrible crimes, no W walk freely in the streets? Why is it that Mr. Saldaris dare not confuse the other European Quislings with their respective nations? I would like to remind you that during the Italo-Greek War, some 100 Albanian soldiers forced into service by the Italians rose against them and made common cause with the Greek people. Some deserted and went over to the Greek troops to fight alongside them, but they were treated as prisoners of war and sent 34 to Crete, where during the German landing they fought valiantly beside the British soldiers. Some joined the Albanian partisans while others were disarmed by the Italians, withdraw N from the front. Confined to the Shijak concentration camp, a ND court-martialed for high treason. On December 22, 1940, on this event, the Root, our news agency, sent out the following item from Manastir. The Albanian soldiers forcibly conscripted into the Italian army yesterday rebelled in a sector behind the Italian lines, causing the enemy heavy losses before being captured. Some have taken to the hills and are continuing to offer resistance. On December 4, 1940, the Anatolia news agency reported from Athens that an Italian general taken prisoner by the Greeks has declared that the Italian army is suffering heavy losses because of the defection of the Albanians. Mussolini himself, in a letter to Hitler on November 22, 1940, tried to justify the Italian losses in the same way. Here's what Badoglio says in his memoirs. The campaign has begun. The entire world knows of its progress. The Greek troops in Epirus are resisting valiantly on the Calamus River, while the Albanian bands and troops which were part of our divisions have either betrayed us, sabotaging our operations, or have gone over to the Greeks. He newspaper Le Figaro, in its issue number 35, 588 of July 4, 1946, referring to the Italo-Greek War, writes, the Albanian partisan detachments for their part attacked Italian convoys and troops on the roads leading to the front. On October 26, 1940, the BBC broadcast, we are informed from Albania that Albanian partisan units operating behind the Italian lines are cutting and sabotaging lines of communication, sowing terror among cut-off Italian detachments. Armed groups have succeeded in entering the capital and have posted proclamations on all the government buildings and even on the palace of the Italian government, calling on the Italians to get out of Albania. Likewise, on January 4, 1941, the BBC broadcast, in military circles it is pointed out that the Albanians are giving the Greeks great aid against the Italians. BUTE, along with his lying accusations against the Albanian people, perhaps Mr. Saldaris should give us here some explanation of these questions. Does he also consider as aggressors, as he does Albania, the various nations of Europe, whose Quislings not only sent battalions but even organized entire expeditions against the heroic Red Army, which was an example of heroism and valor to all nations and, at the same time, their surest support? It is difficult for him to answer this question. 36. Does Mr. Saldaris perhaps consider France, from which Hitler intended to launch his offensive against Britain, to be an aggressor country? He will find it difficult to answer this question too. Mr. Saldaris thinks that he can say what he likes against tiny Albania, but he is mistaken. HIS worthless arguments will not hold water. No, the Albanian people have never been and never will be aggressors, and do not pose any threat to the Greek people, as Mr. Saldaris claims. The attacks on our country by the first Greek delegate and his claims that it is we who are causing trouble remind us of one of La Fontaine's fables. We have always lived in harmony with the Greek people, with whom we fought shoulder to shoulder against the Italian and German fascist occupiers. During the anti-fascist war, the Albanian people established links of sincere friendship with their neighbors, the Yugoslav and Greek peoples. In the light of these facts, the Greek accusations are seen for what they really are, lies devoid of any foundation. But has Mr. Saldaris so quickly forgotten the fact that the Greek Quislings, together with the Germans, often fought against the Albanians and are responsible for 1,000 atrocities? Here are some facts. On September 8, 1943, the day of Italy's capitulation, the Germans, coming from the say, 37. Otta region and guided by a Zervis captain named Vitos, entered Konespol and burnt down more than 50 houses. During the great 1943-1944 winter offensive launched by the Germans against our National Liberation Army, the German troops, together with Zervis bands, came to Albania from Greece and set fire to the Zagoria and Pogon regions. Other Zervis bands, together with the Germans, fought against the Albanian partisans in January 1944 and set fire to the villages of Kari, Ni, and Dermish, as well as the houses of all the partisans from the Greek minority of Dropol, while in February 1944 these bands burned down in the village of Drovjan. During the other large-scale offensive unleashed by the Germans in June 1944, Zervis forces again came, together with the German troops, from Greece crossing the border at Boshtina, and set fire to everything in the Zagoria region they had left unburnt the first time. Each time the Germans came from Greece to attack the forces of our National Liberation Army, their main support was the armed bands of the Greek Quisling general, Napoleon Zervis. The Greek delegation has claimed that the present Albanian government is pursuing a policy of denationalizing the Greek minority in Albania. Gentlemen, the Greek minority in Albania fought shoulder to shoulder with all the Albanian people against the fascist and Nazi occupiers, and against the Albanian and Greek Quislings. Today, 38. In the People's Republic of Albania, it enjoys equal rights with the Albanian population. IT has 79 seven-year schools and one secondary school in the Greek language, has its OU and autonomous local administration, just like the Albanian population, and sends representatives to the People's Assembly. There are also citizens of the Greek minority in the army and the government. On the other hand, I do not know if the honorable delegates are aware of the terror exercised against the Armenia population in Greece. In June 1944 and March 1945, the armed bands of the Quisling general Napoleon Zervis set their villages on fire, plundered their property, and killed thousands of men and women, old people and children. More than 20,000 people of Amria who managed to escape fled to Albania, where, although they are assisted by the Albanian government and people, they live in great poverty. The real aim of all these allegations by the Greek delegate is to take two regions from Albania, those of Kor and Gjirokastra, which have always been among the most ardent centers of Albanian patriotism, both during the long Turkish occupation and during the national liberation WAR against the Italian and German occupiers. These aims reflect the old Megali idea policy, that is to say, of Greek imperialist expansion over the entire Balkan region, an idea which is also germinated in the heads of the 39 present Greek rulers. In fact, these people, with their claims on Albania, their daily provocations on our borders, and their intrigues, like the proposal Mr. Saldaris made to the Yugoslav delegate that Albania be partitioned between Yugoslavia and Greece, are trying to disturb the peace in the Balkans. Gentlemen, we consider it to be out of place and unacceptable for this conference to examine the question of the territorial integrity of Albania. The Albanian people, few in number but great in the sacrifices they made for the common cause, are not here to discuss their borders but to express and demand their rights. We solemnly declare that within our present borders there is not 1 inch of foreign soil, and that we will never permit anyone to encroach upon them, for to us they are sacred. One at the Paris Peace Conference, Saldaris made to the head of the Yugoslav delegation a secret proposal to partition Albania between Greece and Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav representative turned down the proposal in the hope that eventually the whole of Albania would become part of Yugoslavia. 40. Our borders cannot be discussed. September 16, 1946. Before leaving Paris, Comrade Enver Hoxha made a clear and resolute statement to representatives of the press in Paris, in which he rejected the decision of this conference to discuss the borders of southern Albania. The text of this statement follows: my people, who were the first to hurl themselves in the war against fascism and fought through to the end, had great confidence when they sent me to the peace conference that they would receive greater justice. The Albanian people through me have sought nothing but that justice for which their heroic sons and daughters gave their lives, have sought nothing but the fruit of their great sacrifices. T.S. Justice has, 41, been denied us, after so many sacrifices made by our people, after so many brilliant proofs of their heroism and self-denial, after so much bloodshed by all mankind. There are individuals who shamelessly deny our gigantic efforts, who describe our wars a myth, who want to place us on the same footing as the Italian fascist aggressors, and who demand from our country territories which have never been theirs. However, our people are not surprised that there are such individuals even today, although they regret to see that the representatives of certain allied countries who are very well aware of our heroic war, the great sacrifices we have made and who themselves have praised them, are giving open or disguised support to representatives of the government in Athens, disturbers of peace in the Balkans and the world. History will be the judge to this great injustice. Weiss H is being done to Albania, but Albania will stand with its head high, because in the time of danger it performed its duty to mankind to the end. He civilized and democratic people see tamely understand this injustice which is being done to my small country, which deserves full honors and rights. We and the Albanian people were bravely fighting fascism, others were throwing flowers at it, but when the time came that our people demanded the place they so richly deserved in UNO or the peace conference stones were 42, throw N at them. My people will never be able to understand this logic, because this is not honorable. But in this whole question, one thing is clear: the rights of small peoples are frequently trampled upon. My people are completely convinced of this, just as they are convinced of and grateful on the other hand for the great and sincere friendship which was displayed towards them at every moment when our question was put forward by many delegations of allied countries and friends, both at the Paris Peace Conference and UNO. However, the Albanian people, who were never discouraged even in the most critical moments of their existence, will continue on the road of progress and will exert all their modest strength for the consolidation of peace. My people, who are working in peace and order for the rebuilding of their homes, are not afraid of the Greek fascists who are hatching up plots against them. We are a peace-loving people, but we are not a people who allow others to trample on us. We know WOW to defend our rights, our freedom, our independence, our sovereignty, and our territorial integrity. For centuries on end, the Albanian people have fought to DUIN these sacred rights, and they are ready, even today, to begin their struggle all over again if the fascist adventurers dare to lay a finger on them. Since the liberation of my country, the Greek monarcho-fascists have done nothing but 43 commit provocations on our southern border. Almost everyday armed attacks of the Greeks are carried out against our border guards, against our hardworking and peace-loving people, against our ports and shores. To the Greek fascists, it is intolerable that a strong and healthy democracy such as this of ours should exist on their North Ireland border. They are doing their utmost to disturb peace in the Balkans. They are even going so far as to demand southern Albania because they claim it is Greek territory. The Paris Conference voted in favor of the Greek demand, the aim of which is discussion of the borders of southern Albania. 1. I solemnly declare that neither the Paris Conference nor the BIG4 Conference nor 1 on August 30 any other conference can take up for discussion the borders of our country within which there is not an inch of foreign territory. Our borders cannot be discussed, and no one will dare to lay a finger on them. To be able to take an inch of the territory of our country, the Greek reaction will have to set in motion other mechanisms besides the vote of the Paris Conference. The whole world must know that the Albanian people do not permit their borders and territories to be discussed. On the other hand, I protest against the decision taken at the plenary session of the Paris Conference. The Albanian people have not sent their delegation to Paris to render account, but to demand a reckoning from those who have damaged them so greatly and who they have fought sternly through to the end. We have done our duty just as the great powers have done theirs. Our martyrs and sacrifices are just as sacred to us as are the martyrs and sacrifices of the great powers. All our rights are just as sacred to us as theirs are to them. Apparently, however, the Paris Conference did not take these things into account in leaving Paris on behalf of our people. I want to thank all the representatives of those countries who defended the just and well-earned cause of the small Albanian people. On the other hand, we wish with all our hearts that an end will be put to this unjust campaign of slanders. 45. From start to finish against our country, which has fought so courageously against fascism, and which will expend all its strength to consolidate a just and lasting peace. 46. We sympathize with THE efforts OFTT, Greek people for freedom and Democrat Y, October 3, 1947, at a big rally which was held in the city of Gjirokastra. Comrade Enver Hoxha, who was on a working visit to some districts of central and southern Albania, delivered a speech in which he also dwelt on problems of the international situation and, in this context, touched briefly on some political developments in the neighboring countries. About the situation in Greece, he said, "We and our people are rebuilding their Count Weiss H was devastated during the war, when our country is working with all its might to strengthen the people's democracy in advance." 47. On its peaceful and progressive course, Greek monarcho-fascism is employing 1,001 of the basest methods to inflict harm on our people. Yo no W, what a terrible tragedy is occurring in Greece. The unfortunate but heroic Greek people are fighting against monarcho-fascists and the foreign intervention. The progressive and democratic world is profoundly indignant when it sees the great tragedy of that people who deserve to live free and sovereign, but who, unfortunately, are being mercilessly oppressed and killed by collaborators of Italo-German fascism who are no W under the direct orders of Anglo-American reaction. Our people, like all the other peoples of the world, sympathize with the heroic struggle of the Greek people who fought bravely against the Italian and German occupiers and are now fighting heroically to liberate themselves from the new occupiers and the bloodthirsty monarcho-fascist quislings. Anyone who considers himself a Democrat could not but sympathize with the efforts of the Greek people for freedom and democracy. However, the struggle of the Greek people is an internal struggle that they and they alone must deal with, and it does not behove our people and our government to meddle in any way in the internal problems of others. The Albanian people and government have never meddled and never will meddle in the internal affairs of Greece because they are the problems of the Greek people themselves, and they must solve their problems in the way they 48 themselves desire. TS has been, is, and will be our stand. I repeat this because you know what a campaign of slanders and lies has been launched against our country by the Greek monarcho-fascists and their American and British protectors. They make the accusation that our country is allegedly interfering in the problems of Greece, that we are assisting the struggle of the Democrats, and that allegedly we are supplying them with arms and ammunition. And hence, from this they want to drive the conclusion that the struggle of the Greek people is being incited and maintained by foreigners. The Greek people are being tortured, killed, and burnt out by fascist bandits, and they have taken up arms to save their lives and the lives of their children, to save their homeland. The Americans, the British, and those who do their dirty work call this foreign intervention. This, you might say, is trying to cover the sun with a sieve. No, our people do not have a finger in the war of the Greek people, but when the Americans, British, and monarcho-fascists make these accusations and slanders, their aim is to cover up the true nature of the war of the Greek people, to cover up the origin of this war, to cover up the terror of Greek monarcho-fascism, to cover up the tragic game they are engaged in, or I might say, their open savage intervention. It is as tragic as it is ridiculous for America to accuse our small, peace-loving people of being the cause of the war which is being waged in Greece and supplying arms and AM. 49. Munition for this war. No one can swallow this. The Americans can convince only themselves. The hostile attitude of the American and British governments towards our country and people is no end by the whole Albanian people and all peoples of the world. Against the small people who have fought with heroism against occupiers, who have set up one of the most democratic regimes and who are engaged with all their might in constructive and peaceful work. American and British reaction is employing 1,001 anti-democratic methods, using the threats, blackmail, and slanders which are no end to all of you and D which are used, as has been proven, in order to damage our country and our people's democracy. You have heard everything that the filthy agents of the Anglo-Americans admitted at their trial in Tirana. You have heard how members of the Anglo-American missions together with the traitors of the Albanian people plotted to overthrow the people's power in Albania, how they organized acts of sabotage and assassinations. Those individuals and those governments who have the shamelessness to concoct baseless slanders against our small people are involved up to their elbows in interference in our internal affairs. However, they got nowhere. Their criminal activities were discovered in time, and their agents will receive the punishment they deserve. The statements of the Department of State and the Foreign Office denying the interference of their men in the internal AF. 50%. Affairs of the sovereign state are in vain. The facts and arguments are much too solid to crumble in the face of such statements. The officials of the American Department of State describe the saboteurs, the assassins, the bandits, and the spies who were tried in Tirana, who wanted to give to the Greece of Taldaris the cities of Gjirokastra and Gora, which are cradles of the patriotism of our country, as Democrats and liberals. Imagine what the American Department of State conceives as democracy. No, in our count where the people have shed so much blood and there is a genuine democracy. We call Chef Beya and company fascist bandits and condemn them without mercy, whether or not the officials of the American Department of State like it. But the thing is that it is not to the liking of the American Department of State that the people are in power, governing themselves, making their out and laws, and building their lives as they desire. That department, which is vainly accusing others of interference in other people's business, is not only interfering itself, but is striving with every means to crush other peoples under the iron heel. That is the alleged democracy of the Department of State, with its TRUM and doctrine and Marshall Plan. What does occur when ex-deputy who placed himself in the service of American and British imperialists to overthrow the people's power? Ringing Greece is the doing of American and British reaction and the monarcho-fascists alone and nobody else. Monarcho-fascist Greece has not only been transformed into a base of Amer-Icam reaction, but it has also become a threat to peace in the Balkans and the world. For years on end, the Greek monarcho-fascists have been pursuing against our country a campaign of provocations and insults, a campaign of territorial pretensions, a war of nerves outdoing those of the German Nazis. Almost every day, the monarcho-fascists of Athens and their gangs commit provocations on our borders, shoot at our guards, and kill our peaceful peasants working in the fields. These things come within the general plan hatched up by American and British reaction to support their thesis, why SH has long been bankrupt. The monarcho-fascists have given refuge to a number of Albanian fascist bandits and organized them in small groups to attack our guards to create incidents on the borders, and to infiltrate into our country to carry out assassinations and sabotage. But our borders are inviolable, protected by the sons of our heroic people, who fought the Germans and Italians for years on end and defeated them, and are not afraid of the dogs of Xerxes or Salderis. The monarcho-fascists do what they like across the border, but they know very well what awaits them on this side of the border. However, in case they do not know, we tell them now in 52. Defense of our homeland, our borders, and our rights, we are fearless, and we do not bat an eye. YOU are well aware of the lunatic claims of the Greek fascists to the so-called Vorio Epirus, that is, to Hoxha and Kora, indeed even to Elbasan right up to the Shkumen River. This is their same old story. This is the old refrain of the Megalia Venizelos and the gangs of Zagraphos. 3. We have no time to deal at length with these matters, but the Albanian people tell the Greek monarcho-fascists bluntly. Kora and Hoxha are our territories and ours alone. We advise those who want to lay hands on them not to play with fire. Tihi Greek monarcho-fascists are concocting the basest slanders that the Albanians allegedly kill, torture, and burn out the small Greek minority that lives in our region of Hoxha. There could be no greater lie, but the Greek monarcho-fascists measure things by their Alban yardstick and think that we act as they acted with the Albanians in Amria, whom they killed, burned out, and finally robbed and expelled. No, YOU better than anyone how we live with the fraternal Greek minority in our country. We have the Greek minority in Albania as our brothers. The members of the minority are linked with the Albanian people like flesh to bone. The brave sons of the peasants of the minority fought. 2. Eleftherios Venizelos, reactionary Greek politician. 3. An enemy of the Albanian national movement, he fought for the annexation of southern Albania by Greece 53. Shoulder to shoulder with the Albanian people, fought for the freedom of Albania for genuine democracy, and at the same time, like the whole Albanian people, fought to liberate themselves from bondage to the Agas and Bays of Libahova and Hoxha. The Albanian people sing to the bravery of Lefter Talo, Tanaziko, and other martyrs from the minority, just as they sing songs to Asim Zanelli or Kemal Mustafa. Generation after generation, the Albanian people will not separate the sons of the minority who fell in the WAR from their Awan sons. The Greek minority fought together with the Albanian people, they triumphed, and are enjoying and living the new life together with the fraternal Albanian people. The peasants of the minority received the land from the land reform, and this has no become theirs forever. They have the aid of the people's state, which is their state, and which does not make the slightest distinction between them and the rest of the Albanian population. The Greek minority has all rights, has its Awan schools and its Awan newspaper in the Greek language. Our brothers and sisters of the Greek minority know and enjoy all these rights. They understand how ludicrous and base are the slanders of the fascists of Athens. The Greek minority in Albania, which is living in peace and enjoying life, sees what is going on in Greece and where the monarcho-fascists of Athens are leading the heroic Greek people. And the hearts of the brothers and sis. 54. Terrors of the Greek minority in Albania have been saddened by the great misfortunes which are occurring to their brothers in Greece. TS is true of them, just as it is of us, however. The Greek minority linked forever with the Albanian people should be proud of the heroic Greek people, who are invincible and who are fighting bravely against the occupiers and the fascist gangs of Teldaris for the freedom of Greece and for genuine democracy.